After pranapratishtha is taking place, we can think of the idol as Chaitanya, as awakened, as containing consciousness. So within this physical body, there's a consciousness. And so think about pranapratishtha as the awakening of consciousness within a particular form. Chaitanya. Chaitanya, it's awakened. It carries the consciousness of the Supreme Self. You could say it's awakened. It carries the awakened energy, and it becomes a vehicle for the transmission of grace. It becomes a vehicle for the transmission of that Chaitanya, that consciousness. Shaivism says Chaitanyam Atma. So it's awakening that Chaitanya, that consciousness in that particular form. The idol becomes a vehicle for the divine to transmit energy, to perform the fifth of the cosmic functions called anugraha, the bestowal of grace. So if one's heart is open to receive, one can receive the full measure of divine grace through this vehicle. After pranapratishtha, the form, the idol, becomes a vehicle for the transmission of grace. So the fifth cosmic function of the Supreme Being is anugraha, which is the process of revelation. Think about it as grace, as shaktipat, as awakening. And this is an energy that elevates us into the awareness of our own being as consciousness, as Shiva. We use the term disciples' grace. So it's through the power of our intention, the power of our own awareness, that we can invoke the grace-bestowing power of God within us. It said, Guruva anugrahika shaktihi, that a guru is not the physical form or a particular person. It's the power, the grace-bestowing power of supreme consciousness that can flow through an individual. No true guru would say, "Oh, it's me. I'm the grace-bestowing power of God." No. The guru becomes the vehicle through which it's transmitted. So through the power of the disciple's grace, the Ishta Devata, the awakened form, can become a vessel, become a vehicle, a channel for the awakening of the Shakti within the disciple. So traditionally, this awakening, we can call it Shaktipat, there's a spiritual awakening that takes place. And there's four main ways that it takes place. One is through sound, through the word, through a mantra. So the repetition of a mantra that's been fully awakened, a Chaitanya mantra, carries the power of the guru or of the deity itself and has the ability to awaken consciousness within us. Through a look, second way is through a look. Either the look of a guru looking at the disciple, or the disciple looking at the form of the guru or the particular deity. So it can happen through vision, through seeing. This is darshan. This is why we go for the darshan of great beings, why we go to sacred holy places and have the darshan of an Ishta Devata or a Chaitanya, an awakened pranapratishtha deity. It can happen through a touch. So a touch means a physical guru. A guru can touch you, awaken the energy, or we can be touched by the head of God. It can be a physical sensation where we actually feel within us the awakening of this energy because of the power of attracting that consciousness to our own being. So it can be a look, a thought. Even a thought of the divine is enough. So when we look at a particular deity, we love that deity, just the the mere thought of that representing universal consciousness has the ability to awaken that consciousness within us. Hamsa for the tradition of Shaivism, the Tantrics use Hamsa. The Vedantins use Soham. The Tibetan tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, also uses the sound Hangsu. So what we're talking about is a very, very subtle sound, almost imperceptible, where the mind becomes completely quiet and we're listening to that primal, subtle vibration. So these words Hamsa, Soham, Hangso, these are approximations. We're giving a physical sound to a sound that's more subtle than sound itself. So meditate using the mantra Hamsa, or if you prefer Soham, and allow it to take you to that point of your own direct experience of the sound, and then you tell me, is it Hamsa? Is it Soham? Is it Hangso? But it's not so important what the sound is, that it brings us back to our primal awareness, brings us back to the source of our own being, which is the awareness I am. Well, there are two parallel traditions, broadly speaking, in India. The ones that are based on the Vedas, and from these Vedas come the Shad Darshanas. Vedanta is among those. And parallel with that is what I'll call the Tantric tradition. And they grew up side by side. They're not mutually exclusive. So the tradition of the Vedas was largely Brahmanic, largely male, right? And based on the Vedas. At the same time, the Tantras evolved and grew. And interestingly enough, they both found the same truth. The Tantras found through practice that the breath makes the sound of Hamsa, which means I am that. And the tradition of the Vedas and the Vedantic tradition discovered that the breath makes a sound very similar. So Ham, which means that I am. So there's really no contradiction between the two. I was actually initiated by my guru initially into the Soham mantra, Soham, which means that I am. And after practicing this for a couple of years, he initiated me into Hamsa and said, let the Soham go. Now repeat the sound Hamsa and listen to it with your breath. It's not so much a mantra that we repeat, it's really more of a listening, of a joining of our mind with the breath. It's a yoga of joining the breath with the mind with the breath until they become one. So you may find that you resonate more with Hamsa, or you may find that you resonate more with Soham. Find the mantra, find the sound of your own breath. That's the key. Do what works for you. And even Shambhavupaya. So we begin the practice of, let's say, Hamsa meditation. We sit, we bring our awareness first to the breath. So where there's a physical component, the breath comes in, we notice the breath, and we move to a more subtle dimension, which is the use of the mind. We begin to repeat in our mind Hamsa. So we've moved from Anuvapaya to now Shaktapaya. And that will bring us to a deeper level of experience where we're simply listening to the breath within the breath, listening to the energy that moves the breath in, that moves the breath out. So we're moving to a level of Shambhavupaya, beginning to recognize that which is happening within us. So we go from Anuvapaya to Shaktapaya, Shambhavupaya, and this ultimately will lead us to the awareness of pure being. So in any one meditation, we can start with Anuvapaya, move to Shaktopaya, as we become aware that the sound and the mantra and the deity of the mantra are all one, and then that can lead to the direct experience of it, then we simply maintain that awareness, choosing not to allow the mind to become active. We can rest in the awareness of the self, and as we do this over a period of time, the state experience of samadhi, the state experience which comes and goes, becomes a permanent awareness. This becomes our stage of development where we live in the awareness that Hamsa, that I am that. Well, the different traditions continue to exist side by side. So in the Vedantic tradition, the mantra is repeated as Soham. So you will find that traditionally, mantras and meditation is given by a guru. Even in the tradition of Vijnanabhairava Tantra, that this is a manual that's been largely given to the gurus who choose the particular dharana, the particular meditation that works for each student. It's only really in recent times in the 20th century that the Vijnanabhairava was translated and published and made available to the public. Initiation into meditation has, for the most part, been secret and private. So for centuries and centuries, those practicing in the Vedantic tradition have received the mantra Soham. Those practicing in the Tantric tradition have received Hamsa. Well, meditation is taught in the Bhagavad Gita. There's a whole chapter on how to meditate. No, meditation. There's actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a chapter called Dhyana, called meditation. So there are various scriptures where meditation is described. It's not exclusively the domain of Vijnanabhairava Tantra. There are people who meditate because they've been taught by their guru how to meditate, and they have no connection with the Vijnanabhairava Tantra. Vijnanabhairava Tantra is a compendium, it's a collection of the meditation practices worldwide across different traditions. It has Buddhist practices in it, for example, the practice of the void. It has Hindu practices. It's pretty much universal, and it tries to collect all of the various categories of meditation and offer practices in that. As I mentioned, it's a compendium of practices meant, for the most part, for gurus to learn so that they can impart particular practices to specific individuals. Well, let me just say that meditation existed prior to the Vijnanabhairava Tantra. Ancient times, people have been meditating for thousands and thousands of years. So we can't say that all meditation came from the Vijnanabhairava Tantra. I don't think we can honestly say that in integrity. I would say that the Vijnanabhairava Tantra contains all the different forms of meditation, but people have learned meditation from other traditions. And it makes sense because the self is already within us. We already are consciousness. The Vijnanabhairava simply shows us the easiest means to attain that. So there are traditions, other traditions where people meditate where they've never heard of the Vijnanabhairava Tantra. The tradition is, it's divinely inspired. It's Shiva talking to Shakti, Bhairava and Bhairavi. But the truth is, we really don't know. We don't have the original copy. It's said that the Vijnanabhairava Tantra originates in the Rudra Yamala Tantra, but we have the Rudra Yamala Tantra and it's not in there. So we really don't know. The Vijnanabhairava Tantra first shows up when it's commented on in the Tantric tradition of Shaivism. They refer to an ancient scripture called the Vijnanabhairava Tantra, but we don't have the original scripts.